Over 100 COVID-19 patients detected today. Opposition's request to debate the 20th Amendment for 3 days denied. 20th Amendment to be debated on the 21st and 22nd of October. Search operations to locate Rishad Bathiuddin continues. CID questions Sathi Premadasa and Rauf Hakim citing phone calls. Objections on the 20th. Our MP Vijaydas Rajapaksa and State Minister Vidru Vikonayaka disappointed.
මං ගැන නෙවෙයි පාලකයෝ කරන අමනෝට්නේ ක්‍රියා ගැන කලකිරලා ඉන්නේ.
කලකිරිච්ච තැන අපි නිෂ්ක්‍රමණය සිද්ධ වෙනවා.
Yoshida appointed as Prime Minister's Chief of Staff.
A very good evening and a warm welcome to your primetime news on TV1. On to your lead story tonight, 61 individuals have tested positive for COVID-19 in the country today. Army Commander Lieutenant General Shavendra Silva, who heads the National Operations Centre for the Prevention of COVID-19 outbreaks, said 3 of them were detected at quarantine centres. The other 58 patients are their associates. Accordingly, the total number of COVID-19 patients in the country has increased to 5,305. Meanwhile, the National Operations Centre for the Prevention of COVID-19 outbreak announced that stores and pharmacies in areas that are under curfew can be kept open until 10 p.m. today.
The grace period will not be applicable tomorrow and on Sunday. Therefore, travel restrictions will be imposed in areas that are under quarantine curfew. Stores and pharmacies will also remain closed. The regulations established by the Gazette applies to all areas in the country, regardless of whether the curfew is in effect or not. The Director General of Health Services has declared that patients have been identified from several parts in the country. Currently, there are more than 10,000 people in quarantine centres maintained by the Tri-Forces. Between 150 and 300 people return to their homes daily upon completing the quarantine period. The quarantine curfew will continue in the coming days as well.
COVID-19 රෝගීන්ට ප්‍රතිකාර කරන රෝහල් සංඛ්‍යාව
The number of hospitals allocated to treat COVID-19 patients has been increased to 21. By yesterday, 8,000 samples of PCR tests were being tested in laboratories. We haven't identified patients in a scattered manner across the country. All patients identified so far had come into contact with an infected person. The regulations in the Gazette were prepared following discussions with the police chief. Therefore, we reached an agreement with the police chief stating that this would not be misused.
එකඟතාවය තමයි කිසිම විදිහකට මේ වැරදි විදිහට පාවිච්චි වෙන්නේ නැහැ කියන කාරණය.
Shops and pharmacies were reopened after 3 days today in areas that were under curfew in the Gampaha District. Accordingly, public movement were observed in the Gampaha, Ganemulla and Sidwa areas. As residents of these areas flocked to stores in order to purchase goods, long queues were seen in many places.
ඔය බිස්කට් පැකට් අනම්ම ඒවා කොහෙනුත් ගත්ත හැකිනේ මිනිසුන්ට තියෙන්න ඕන එදිනෙදා වේල පිරිමහ ගන්න දේවල් තමයි විශේෂයෙන් ආවේ ලුණු 85ට කියලා දැම්මන් ටීවී එකේ කතසින් දෙනවා කියලා ලුණු ගන්න තමයි ආවේ ලුණු නෑ ලුණු ටවුන් එකේ 220 අද ලුණු ඉදා ඉවරලා ගියා ආපහු ඕඩර් දාලා තියෙන දැන් එන්න ඕන තිබුණා ඊයේ පෙරේද අපි දවස් තුනක් වහුවනේ වැහුව නිසා තමයි මේ ගඩු නැතුව
Crowds were seen at the Gampaha market today. Our correspondent reported that activities at the market had taken place by giving priority to health guidelines. Large queues were seen outside pharmacies and lending institutions. People who visited the Mirigama town were warned by the police to avoid coming in large groups. A shortage of goods was also observed at Satusa stores in Sidua. Our correspondent reported that vegetable prices had increased in areas near Sidua. Has a journalist tested positive for COVID-19?
The Government Information Department today said the health sector suspects a journalist who attended a press conference held at the department premises on the 13th of October 2020 was infected with COVID-19. The Department of Government Information said it already furnished the information regarding all the journalists who participated in the media briefing to the health sector. The Cabinet media briefing on the 13th of October 2020 took place in the presence of Joint Cabinet spokesperson Keheliya Rambukwala and Dr. Ramesh Pathirana. Director General of Government Information LANKA'S and journalists were among others present.
The COVID-19 situation in Colombo.
PCR tests were carried out on 130 people, including Colombo Municipal Council members and staff, after one staff member attached to the Public Assistance Department of the Colombo Municipal Council, located in the Maradana office, tested positive for COVID-19. Multiple shops at the Colombo Peta Manin Market remained closed after it was revealed a close contact of a COVID-19 patient had visited the premises recently.
We have not been informed officially regarding anything. Today the number of customers were relatively high compared to yesterday.
Manin market hidi saha Colombo Union pedase.
The results of the PCR tests carried out at the Manin market yesterday confirmed that no one had tested positive for the virus.
34 individuals of 10 families were directed to self-quarantine today after a 63-year-old woman residing at the Red Cross housing complex in Ratmalana tested positive for the virus. The housing complex was disinfected this morning.
Were travel restrictions imposed on several villages in Rambukkana.
Presently, the number of COVID-19 patients reported from the Gampaha District stands at 15, while 636 locals have been directed to self-quarantine.
We identified a COVID-19 patient last evening from the Rambukkana area. She was an employee at an apparel factory in Kaligedihena. Until we identify the contacts, we have temporarily restricted travel in the Iriagolla, Ambulambe, Pinhena, Alawata and the Boroluwa areas.
The situation in the Gampaha District.
The Mirigama Multipurpose Cooperative Service was closed last evening after an employee tested positive for the virus.
In the case of ordinary people, the police and the army will arrest them and obtain details of the places they had visited and the individuals who came into contact with them. However, in the case of politicians, it seems there is no indication of the places they visit. Intelligence units have now managed to lay the blame on the Brantix factory when COVID-19 patients were detected in the country. There are clusters in the country. Instead of recognizing them as separate clusters, they are linking into the Minuwangoda cluster. There is a capacity for the country's healthcare system. Although our country can handle the existing situation, the capacity will decrease when more COVID-19 patients are identified in the country. Our healthcare system is on the brink of collapsing. However, our government is in denial about that. Meanwhile, the Federation of National Organizations has drawn the attention of President Gotabaya Rajapaksa to control the second wave of the COVID pandemic. In a letter addressing the president, they stated the respect won by the government led by the president for the suppression of the first COVID-19 wave is slightly fading away during the second wave due to several reasons. The Federation of National Organizations requested the president to conduct a formal inquiry into such matters which are currently being discussed in the society. They further stated the conspiratorial activities of several parties against the government should be exposed and legal action should be taken. The Gazette notification outlining COVID-19 health regulations in the country was published last evening. According to the Gazette, individuals in a public place or at a location in which one may come into contact with another person shall wear a face mask at all times. Further, all individuals entering any institution or workplace are also required to wear a face mask at all times. The Gazette ordered that a distance of not less than 1 meter must be maintained between two people and that temperature checks must be carried out on all individuals entering any establishment. The Gazette has also instructed to provide adequate hand washing facilities with soap or sanitizer for individuals entering these establishments. It adds that the name, national identity card number and contact details of every person entering any institution or workplace must also be recorded at all times. The number of employees at a workplace must also not exceed the maximum number of individuals permitted at a time. Meanwhile, the number of employees and other people permitted at an institution providing essential services at an area in which COVID-19 patients have been identified must not exceed the permitted limit.
Six Buddhist monks who played a crucial role in the current government's election to power have said that the powers of Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa would be curbed by the 20th Amendment. In a letter to the President, the Theros pointed out that the 20th Amendment would result in an unstable government that is not governed by the law.
The letter to the President had been sent by Venerable Bengamu Nalaka Thero, Venerable Muruthettuwe Ananda Thero, Venerable Allegunwansa Thero, Venerable Dr. Indurage Dhammaratana Thero, Venerable Malwani Chandraratana Thero, and Venerable Kapugol Lave Anandaki Thero. The letter noted that the 20th Amendment would create a weak cabinet and an arbitrary executive who can bring the legislature and the judiciary under his control. It added that the amendment would also deprive the people of their right to move court against any unconstitutional act committed by the President. The Theros pointed out that there is a higher possibility that the proposed amendment would result in an unstable state apparatus that is not governed by the law. The letter, which said that it has been sent on behalf of national organizations and the public, expressed several remarks on the 20th Amendment. It insisted that the 20th Amendment has been drafted by completely ignoring the national forces and the aspirations of the people who voted the government into power. The Theros said that the bill of the amendment that seems to have been drafted by an individual without a minimum knowledge on the matter has drawn public criticism. Accordingly, they suspected that the 20th Amendment is being mooted by a force that is attempting to tarnish the faith placed by the people on the government and the President and also to betray the country. The Theros urged that the provisions on emergency bills, the removal of an oath clause undertaken by ministers, deputy ministers, state ministers, non-cabinet ministers and their secretaries against the creation of a new state and the lifting of the dual citizenship barrier to enter parliament must be removed from the bill. They warned that it is dangerous to allow individuals who are biased towards a foreign country or have dual citizenships with their families to be involved in drafting the country's laws. On the same lines, the letter said that there is no guarantee that these individuals will act in favor of our country. Accordingly, the Theros said that dual citizens must be disqualified not only from holding the post of parliamentarian but from other high-ranking positions as well. They stressed that the provisions that exempt the Presidential Secretariat, the Prime Minister's office and institutions in which the government has a 50% or higher stake from an audit and also restrict the enforcement of the law against individuals who violate regulations introduced by the National Election Commission must also be removed from the bill. The Theros said that the government appointed by a majority of people's votes will be able to join hands with small extremist parties using the provisions to appoint an unlimited number of ministers. They questioned whether individuals such as former Minister Rushad Badruddin are conducting themselves closely with the government to make use of the provisions in the amendment. The Theros emphasized that the government had promised the people that they would introduce a new constitution to the country. Accordingly, they the President to think again before taking steps to pass the 20th Amendment in its existing form.
The government has turned down a request made by the opposition to conduct a 3-day parliamentary debate on the second reading of the 20th Amendment to the Constitution. During a party leaders' meeting today, a decision was made to conduct the debate on the 21st and 22nd of this month. The debate on both of these days will take place from 10 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. The amendment will reach the committee stage following the conclusion of the debate at 7:30 p.m. on the 22nd of this month.
The constitutional amendment has not been discussed among party leaders, consultative committees or any other parliamentary committees. Therefore, this matter must be debated in Parliament across 3 days if it is to take place efficiently. However, they have rejected our request and only granted us 2 days to debate this. What the government must be doing is to uplift the lives of the people that have been affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. However, they have given more prominence to the 20th Amendment.
හැබැයි ඒ සියල්ලට වඩා ආණ්ඩුවට වැදගත් වී තිබෙන්නේ 20 වෙනි සංශෝධනය.
We requested for a 3-day debate on the 20th, 21st and the 22nd of this month. However, they did not agree on that. They only granted us 2 days. We have 24 hours to prepare for this. The next government will be born after the 20th. The party leaders decided to discuss this personally with the parliamentarians. They inquired from us about supporting the 20th Amendment. I said I would not be able to do it. We requested to postpone this matter at least by a week instead of passing it in a hurry without a debate amidst the COVID-19 pandemic. However, that was rejected completely. The Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna has 145 seats. There are 4 or 5 parties that support them. They will then receive 150 votes. When the Speaker doesn't vote, that will be reduced to 149. When Vijayadasa Rajapaksa doesn't vote in favour, it will go down to 148. That would mean that they would not hold a 2/3 majority in Parliament. Therefore, we have been informed that they are seeking the support of other parliamentarians as well.
Police obstructed a group of trade union representatives who attempted to stage a protest opposite the 4 railway stations against the 20th Amendment today. The protesters resorted to pasting posters amidst the tense situation.
This cannot be done due to the COVID-19 pandemic. If we must maintain social distancing and if we cannot paste posters, then don't bring forward the 20th Amendment. If the amendment is being brought forward, we have the right to oppose it. Why are we being deprived of that right by using COVID-19 as an excuse? Everyone is opposing the 20th Amendment. Freedom of speech is being suppressed. We have no room to express our thoughts. The government must think about this. If there is a large-scale opposition against this before bringing forward the amendment, what would be the situation once it is brought forward?
Meanwhile, parliamentarian Dr. Vijayadasa Rajapaksa called on the Archbishop of Colombo, His Eminence Malcolm Cardinal Ranjit, this afternoon. Based on my understanding, His Eminence shares the same views as mine regarding the 20th Amendment to the Constitution. This constitutional amendment has not been drafted to suit our country. I'm not trying to attack anyone. As a citizen of this country and as a public representative, it is our responsibility to point out any matter that may pose a threat to our country. I do not care about what others say. I do politics with the intention of protecting this country for the future generations. The people have elected a president and government to protect this country. If the leaders betray them, the people are left helpless. However, the people should not back out. The people must use their powers. Let's wait and see. The Supreme Court's decision on the 20th Amendment will be presented in Parliament next week. Thereafter, we will work on it accordingly.
Opposition leader Sajith Premadasa said in a statement that the passing a sustainable modern healthcare bill is more important and timely than bringing in 20th Amendment to the Constitution amidst a power struggle. He points out that the government is trying to secure its power struggle instead of securing the lives of the people who have been severely affected. The leader of the opposition says that the people who believed that the government would stand up for the safety of the people have given the present government a huge mandate of nearly 2/3. However, in response, the government is rapidly moving towards an anti-democratic dictatorship.
Amidst the discourse over the 20th Amendment and the moves to pass it with a 2/3 majority in Parliament, search operations are underway for the arrest of parliamentarian Rishad Badiuddin. A team of Criminal Investigation Department officers visited the residence of opposition leader Sajith Premadasa after their attempts to locate the former minister proved futile. Issuing a statement, the media unit of the opposition leader said that CID officers had questioned the opposition leader on a telephone call that had taken place between him and Rishad Badiuddin. The media unit noted that it is the responsibility of the opposition leader to hold talks with the parliamentarians in his faction and to stand up on behalf of their rights. Accordingly, it stressed that opposition leader Sajith Premadasa has fulfilled his responsibilities in an appropriate manner. The statement claimed that the government is acting out a scripted drama while pointing out that the parliamentarian has not been arrested for 2 days, although authorities have said that 6 police teams are involved in the operation.
A statement was recorded from me about a phone call on the 10th. He called me before Attorney General gave recommendations. He made inquiries about something minute. He asked me about the vote regarding the 20th Amendment. We did not speak about anything else.
The Criminal Investigations Department recorded a statement from former Minister Rishad Badiuddin's wife at their Colombo residence. Detectives first searched the Bauddha Lokamawatha Colombo 7 residence and then recorded a statement.
පොලිස් කණ්ඩායම හයක් දාලා රිෂාඩ් බදුරින් අත්තරන් කරගන්න බැරි මොකද කියලා තියෙනවා. ඒ පොලිස් කණ්ඩායම හය හොයන්න තව පොලිස් කණ්ඩායමක් දාන්න. මේවා නර නාටක. මේවා නර නාටක. එච්චරයි. නර නාටක මහත්තයෝ නර නාටක. රවි කරුණානායකවත් හෙව්වා.
They were looking for Ravi Karunanika and Rajitha Senaratne. Now they're looking for him. Who are they trying to crack jokes to? Is it the people of the country? People will not see this as jokes. If this continues, the people will make a decision at the next election. We will have to face the same fate the United National Party had to face.
එක්සත් ජාතික පක්ෂයට වෙච්ච දේ අපිටත් සිද්ධ වෙන්න පුළුවන්. රජය ගැන ඔබතුමා කලකිරලා තින්නේ? කලකිරිච්ච තැන අපි නිෂ්ක්‍රමණය සිද්ධ වෙනවා. නෑ හැමදාම ඉතින් සාමාන්‍යයෙන්
Every time politicians hide when there is a warrant to arrest them, they will eventually come forward.
ඉංග්‍රීසි ඉඳලා වෙලාවට බාර වෙයි. මේකටම ජනාධිපතිතුමා බස් ප්‍රහාරය සඳහා දිගටම කැඳවනවා. ඔව් ඉතින් ඒක මං හිතන්නේ දැන්
We were told that this will end in 3 days. They have added 3 more days to it. We are watching the proceedings. Instead of summoning those responsible for the attacks, they are calling the victims to testify. They have to investigate those who carried out the attacks. They have disregarded that and are doing other things.
වෙන වෙන ඒවට දැන් අත ගහලා ඉදින්නේ. ඒකයි අපිට තියෙන ප්‍රශ්නේ.
මේ වෙනකොටත් බදුර්දීන්ට සහ බදුර්දීන්ගේ සහෝදරයාට ආණ්ඩුවේ පූර්ව ආරක්ෂාව සහ රැකවරණේ තියෙනවා. ඔබතුමාවත් කියන්නේ බගකින් නැති ඒවා මම කතා කරලා නැහැනේ. ආරක්ෂාව සපයනවා කියන්නේ ආණ්ඩුව ඔබ සංගවාගෙන සිටිනවා. ඒක මන් දන්නේ. ඒක අහන්න ඕනේ ආණ්ඩුවේ ලොක්කන්ගෙන්. ඇයි මෙච්චර ලොකු පොලිසියකට මේ පුද්ගලයෙක් අතනගුණා මේ ලංකාවේ ගන්න බැරි? ඒක තමයි මමත් අහන ප්‍රශ්නේ. ඒක තමයි කියන්නේ. ඒක නිසා තමයි කියන්නේ මේ ආණ්ඩුවේ රැකවරණේ තියෙනවා කියලා. ඔබ අනිවාර්යෙන් මේ රජයේ රැකවරණේ කියන්නේ මැතිවරයෙක් ගෙදර ඉන්නවා කියලාද නැත්නම් ඒක ගිහිල්ලා රජයේ බලවතුන්ගෙන් අහන්න ඕන ප්‍රශ්නයක්. ඒගොල්ලෝ ඒකට උත්තර දෙයි.
Yoshitha Rajapaksa has been appointed as the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff. It has been reported that Yoshitha Rajapaksa, the second son of Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa, has been appointed as the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff. The appointment has been made by Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa. Yoshitha Rajapaksa is an officer of the Sri Lanka Navy and has headed the Sri Lanka Navy's rugby team. He has also represented the Sri Lanka rugby team. Yoshitha Rajapaksa received his officer training at the Britannia Royal Naval College in England and is a past pupil of St Thomas's College, Mount Lavinia.
Sri Lanka's geopolitics.
Reports have shown that US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo is expected to visit Sri Lanka on a near date. Now this is a report on this matter.
The US State Secretary and Defense Secretary Mark Esper are scheduled to visit India on the 26th and 27th of October. During their two-day visit, they will engage in bilateral discussions with Indian Foreign Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar and Defense Minister Ranjit Singh. The discussion, that has been dubbed as 2+2, is expected to revolve around decisive matters concerning the Indo-Pacific policy. The US has said it is of the stance that the Indian Ocean must be a free zone without interference. A broad discussion had taken place in this regard during a meeting in Tokyo between the foreign ministers of India, US, Japan and Australia. The discussion between India and the US is scheduled to take place following the meeting between the four nations. Newspaper reports cited Foreign Secretary Admiral Jayannath Columbage as saying there is a higher possibility that the US State Secretary may make a brief stop in the country following the Indian tour. Upon inquiries made by Newsfirst, the US Embassy in Colombo said that the arrival of the US State Secretary is not officially informed yet.
The government does not want to bring Pompeo into the country. It is Pompeo who wants to visit Sri Lanka. Pompeo is scheduled to visit India. There are several places that he is expected to visit. He hopes to visit Sri Lanka as well. We will welcome him in line with diplomatic traditions. However, we don't have an agenda behind that.
Although Mike Pompeo was expected to visit the country in June last year, the tour was called off amidst heavy objection against the AXA and SOFA agreements. A committee led by Professor Lalitha Sirigunudwan informed the President that the MCC agreement that has already been drafted is in violation of the Constitution. Several parties have pointed out that the US has drawn attention towards several projects, including electricity and education, although the MCC agreement only proposes projects concerning land administration and public transport. Following the recently concluded parliamentary election, US Ambassador to Sri Lanka Elena B. Teplitz had called on Education Minister Professor G.L. Pires and Minister of Power Dallas Alahaperuma. Following these meetings, it was said that the US is willing to lend its support towards developing the education, power and energy sectors in Sri Lanka. The SOFA agreement that would pave the way for US military officials to enter and remain in the country had been subjected to severe criticism in the past. However, the US ambassador, who clarified the matter a few months ago, said this agreement would not allow US military officials to enter Sri Lanka and remain in the country. The pact, known as the Visiting Forces Agreement, would allow US forces to enter and leave the country. While various views have been expressed in the country over both agreements, reports indicate that the US State Secretary may visit the country in the near future.
We have learned that US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo is due to visit Sri Lanka by the end of this month. From one side, we have Chinese delegates visiting the island, and on the other, there are complications with India. It is clear that Sri Lanka is entangled in a diplomatic crisis. Is the Chinese delegation that visited recently trying to give us a loan at a high interest rate, or they have other objectives? Did the Chinese delegation visit the island to stop the Sri Lankan government from signing the MCC? Is the US Secretary of State trying to pressurize the government to sign the MCC? It is clear Sri Lanka is facing influence from foreign forces due to the crisis within the government. At this point, Sri Lanka is like a colony. We are being pressurized and influenced from America, India and China. In terms of foreign agreements and transactions, the agendas of these countries have not been affected due to COVID-19. We suspect that they might attempt to divide the MCC agreement into several sub-agreements and implement them separately. The US is suffering with the corona pandemic. Amid such a crisis, why are they trying to help us? It is clear these are all plans that were made on a diplomatic level a long time ago. The US is testing the waters. They are trying to implement a plan that would harm our country. It is clear that the US official is visiting the island to discuss the MCC.
This is ours. Sri Lanka's exclusive economic zone. $517,000 square kilometers of beautiful open ocean. Our greatest resource. 8 times our landmass. This is the Sea of Sri Lanka.
On to more local news. An officer attached to the Police Terrorist Investigations Division made a startling revelation to the Presidential Commission of Inquiry appointed to probe last year's terror attacks.
A sub-inspector attached to the Police Terrorist Investigation Division told the Presidential Commission probing last year's April 21st attacks that Zahran Hashim and his group had planned to launch an attack on the 21st of April last year using 20 suicide bombers. The witness said the suggestion of using 20 suicide bombers was made at a meeting in Sarikamulla, Panadura on the 27th of March last year between Zahran Hashim and 6 others. The witness said that Zahran Hashim and his group had plans to launch the first attack and then a second attack targeting those fleeing the carnage and then a third attack targeting first responders when hospitalizing the injured. At the said meeting, Zahran Hashim and the group had also discussed the possibility of launching another attack targeting a location frequented by foreign tourists in Nuwara. According to the TID witness, Zahran had told the group that these attacks should be launched in retaliation to the attack that targeted Muslims in New Zealand and the attacks against the IS group in Syria. However, the TID witness said there was no definite resolution reached at the meeting to launch the wave of attacks on the 21st of April. It was revealed that Zahran Hashim had told the group in attendance at the meeting that the suicide bombers will be notified of the date of the attacks within 3 days of reaching a decision on when the attacks would be carried out. The witness said that according to investigations, it was revealed that Zahran Hashim had already decided that the attacks must take place on the 21st of April last year.
On to an update from the stock exchange. The Colombo Stock Exchange continued to record a healthy turnover of over 3 billion rupees for the 5th day this week.
The all-share price index was up by 0.44%, gaining 25.79 basis points to close at 5,945.79. The S&P SL20 was up by 0.18%, gaining 4.29 basis points to close at 2,370.43. Turnover at the stock exchange stood at 3.6 billion rupees. The main contributing sectors were transportation, construction and building materials.
The Pathfinder Foundation has pointed out that increasing exports and foreign direct investments is crucial for Sri Lanka's economic revival.
The Pathfinder Foundation has said that the government's most challenging aspect is the fiscal position that has been challenged by COVID-19, tax reductions and weak fiscal outcomes. It has pointed out that the country is expected to receive revenue worth 1.2 trillion this year and that 1 trillion is to be used for interest payments, with other expenses outlaying over this amount. The foundation observed that the country's overall balance of payment has slid to a deficit of $722 million as there has been no international sovereign bond issuances this year. While observing that domestic business confidence has increased in recent months, the Pathfinder Foundation has pointed out that foreign confidence has been more muted. It said that a package of reforms needed to increase productivity is essential to achieve the twin objectives of accelerated growth and debt sustainability. According to the Pathfinder Foundation, increasing exports and foreign direct investment is crucial for overcoming the current unsustainable predicament of obtaining loans to repay liabilities.
Today marks World Food Day, which in fact coincides with the 75th anniversary of the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations. In line with this, the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization and the United Nations World Food Programme joined hands in calling for action to improve the food systems to help people better withstand shocks, including the COVID-19 pandemic, and prevent increasing malnutrition in the country.
The joint statement calls for the need for collaborative action to improve agricultural production while enhancing global supply chains. Preserving access to safe and nutritious food and ending food waste is captured in this year's World Food Day theme, Grow, Nourish, Sustain, Together. The FAO and WFP have stated that undernutrition rates have largely remained unchanged over a decade. These stagnant rates of malnutrition, which are particularly high among children, clearly indicates the need to accelerate and scale up action to strengthen food systems and protect people's lives.
In Sri Lanka, malnutrition, especially among children, anemia, overweight, and obesity are major issues. These nutritional challenges are further compounded by the loss of jobs and reduced incomes due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Agriculture can contribute to improving the nutrition status of a growing population. This can be done by producing a diverse variety of safe and affordable food in adequate quantity and quality to meet the dietary requirements of Sri Lankans. It is important now more than ever to have a healthy population with strong immune systems.
World Food Day is also being celebrated a week after WFP was awarded the 2020 Nobel Peace Prize in recognition of its work to combat hunger and improve conditions for peace.
And that's a wrap of Primetime News. Thank you very much for watching. For the Newsfirst team, I'm Zeenat Musafa, and tonight's news interpreter was Tarika Gabriel. Good night and take care.